You guys have been in the networking industry for last 10, 20, 30 years. We know networking industry does not need another networking company. We have done it all. Another incremental networking company is not going to do much to the industry. We are here to fundamentally transform the networking industry that we know. And we are going to disrupt the way how customers procure, acquire, design, build, install, monitor, manage, and more importantly, how they consume the access networks. I'm referring to the wired and the wireless LAN part of it, including wired access layer, distribution layer, in some cases core layer. Entire thing, how they procure, install, and operate and manage, they will be doing as a what we call network as a service. We've been talking about network as a service for more than 10 years. Recently, Gartner came up with a report talking about truly defining what's a true network as a service. And we are the only vendor that they believe that delivering the true network as a service. That's why they're categorized as a separate industry, separate category, and put us into that. With that, let me give you how I got here personally, as well as Nile got here. In 92, 94, I did a lot of research in artificial intelligence. When you think of AI, now everyone is talking about it. You think of machine learning, deep learning. You need lots of data in order to do certain activity. But as humans, we don't learn from a lot of data. We learn from our actions, the things that work for us, the things that did not work for us. We learn from our failures as well as successes, and we continue to improve on it. That was my research. In 97, 98 timeframe, I was working in a startup. I built the entire networking stack from all the way MAC layer to the management layer. And deployed this technology, including the routing protocols, the forwarding plane, management plane, everything, and deployed it in a global financial bank in 70 countries, 70,000 nodes, and for 7 years. The same technology, I've taken it and tried to deploy it in another bank in Singapore. And we ran into a problem. I had to look for 400 packets, look at every bits and bytes. I took a week long to debug the problem. And finally, only to realize it was a configuration error, the human error. So that's when it struck me, hey, what did I do? I just took a lot of data, collected a lot of information. I have the networking knowledge. I applied that to resolve the problem. Why can't I leverage the AI to do the same thing? So I started a company called Visual Protocols to build an AI-based tool to help network support engineers to resolve the problems. In some cases, you don't need network support engineers to resolve the problems. In 2012, I was at Dell Networking, where we were taking Aruba technology and selling under Dell branded names. So I was presenting to a networking director from AIG Insurance Company from Texas. I was talking about RF, I was talking about context-aware policies, various technologies, and the guy stood up and said, "Sir, can I interrupt you?" "Yes, please." He said, "If you're so passionate, animated about your technology, you seem to be so confident about what you're talking about, why don't you deliver it as a service? Charge me per user per month." I paused for a second. I realized the technology that I built was not meant for network as a service. I'll go into more details on that. Pankaj Patel, who is the CEO of the company, founder of the company, he was Chief Development Officer at Cisco. $38 billion of product portfolio came from his organization. He left Cisco in 2015, and he realized, and all of us contributed to the complexity. We created a complex universe, and he wanted to simplify the universe. And in 2017, when the Houston floods happened, first thing everyone wanted is the business to be up and running. They needed the connectivity. So at the end of the 2017, Pankaj and I ran into each other accidentally, unexpectedly, and our thoughts and vision aligned. And we said, let's start working together. We spent about 6 months talking to CIOs, CISOs from small, medium, and large companies. And I personally spent with a global company, multinational company, they're in 160 countries with 800 locations. I looked at every ticket for 2 years of help desk tickets, analyzed every ticket to see, is it a hardware issue? Is it a software issue? Is it a configuration issue? Is it an operational issue, best practice issue? Is it a people-related issue? Looked at all of that, categorized it. And also looked at what are the top 100 problems that happen in the networking today. And said, we need to fundamentally disrupt this the way it has been developed. And 6 months later, Sri Hosakote, he was an SVP, EVP in previous companies. When you're going after such a massive market and you're fundamentally disrupting, you need to execute on a lot of hardware and software projects. I call Sri Hosakote as execution machine. At Cisco, he built a lot of products from ground up, generating billions of dollars and powering the clouds of the world, Facebooks of the world. John Chambers doesn't need any introduction here. This is the only company he co-founded. Yes, he's associated with many companies, but the only company he co-founded. So when you put this team together, you can imagine we're not coming to develop something incremental technology. We are able to attract some of the best in the valley from top networking companies, as well as the cloud companies, including the Facebook and VMwares of the world. We put together this team, and for almost 4 years, we spent almost 80 to 100 engineers, including the Silicon Valley as well as in India, Bangalore, spent 4 years developing the technology. That is what it takes to deliver truly, true network as a service. And we had to go back to drawing board and pretty much challenge anything and everything that we have. And any assumptions we made, we had to go back to the drawing board and said, is it really required? Do we need in this day and age? And that's why we had to innovate on many, many fronts, not just on the technology front of it, but also the operations, the planning, designing, as well as data monitoring and management. That's why it led to more than 40 patents. We came out of stealth in September of last year, just about 9 months ago, and already we have more than 100 deployments. And one of the customer, I'm proud to say about Stanford. Stanford is very dear and near to us because when you think of networking industry, 2 Stanford professors, they realized that you can have 2 computers talk to each other using a router. They went and started Cisco. And that is where we went back and replaced the network with Nile. And the best part of it is, the PhD students, several students stopped the IT person and said, don't know what you did, but we feel the difference. Can you imagine telling your employees and your users, telling that we feel the difference? That's the kind of service we are delivering. And given the team, given the market we are going after, we raised more than $125 million in Series A and Series B. Watch out for next week, where we are going to have Series C related news. It's big, so it'll be out next week.
So CDC related?
Series C, yes. Now, let's talk about the networking industry, where we are. This is year 2023. We still have basic challenges. This is Newark International Airport. One of my colleague, Firas, he was traveling through in the airport just about 2 months ago. He was trying to get into a tram. What do you see there? He cannot use the infrastructure, even today in 2023. And the other side, the elevator, this happened just over the weekend. Even today, we still have the basic set of challenges. And our core infrastructure is running on a technology that's built over the last 30 years. Why? Why do we still have these kind of problems? I'll tell you, most of us are probably the culprits why we got here. We gave you lots of different technologies, 2-tier, 3-tier, layer 2, layer 3, overlays, underlays, stacking, all types of technology, all types of topologies we gave it to you. On top of that, we created lots of different hardware platforms. And each hardware platform is independently evolved, and they have different operating systems, different release trains. On top of that, we gave you lots of protocols. Layer 2, mother of all problems, even today. And we still tend to use the layer 2. And STP, there are about 20 different versions of the STP. PVLANs, community VLANs, public, private, all sorts of VLANs. We gave you layer 3 protocols and lots of knobs. When you put it all together, each customer chose different permutations and combinations of this technology. Now every customer deployment is a snowflake. And I can guarantee, I can vouch for, I built a lot of these technologies brought to the market. The management is afterthought. We never paid attention to the management when we built these technologies. But I give you credit to the recent companies, cloud-based management companies. They have focused on it, definitely. But also, most of the cloud-based management companies started as wireless companies. Then they got acquired into a larger company. And they're trying to use the existing switching technologies and bolt on the new management. And you guys know it, it does not work, and it's not working. Then the policy, this came along in the last 10, 15 years, and these tools are so complex. Many of our customers told us, the guy who manages this tool, if they were to leave, they dread that scene, because they cannot figure out how to leverage these tools. And this is the reason why, for every dollar we spend on the CapEx, customers spend about $3 in the OpEx, just monitoring and managing and operating these networks. Even after all said and done, 2/3 of IT teams are reacting to end user issues. We talk about networking tickets all the time, help desk tickets in the industry. Some of that has become a fashion. But you know what we heard? I walked into recently a cybersecurity firm in Silicon Valley. As soon as they came to know that we are doing network as a service, we deliver the great service. First thing is, We have lots of problems here. But I go and talk to the IT team. The IT person thinks everything is okay. Why? The reason is we stopped complaining about bad Wi-Fi because we started working around it. There were like another school, high school in Silicon Valley, where we deployed. When they were on Zoom call, they would use cellular. When they need to use email, they use the Wi-Fi. So we gotten used to working around. So it's not about networking tickets. It's really about delivering always-on secured service. So what do we do to deliver network as a service? We were talking earlier while we were walking around. Yeah. This has been talked for 10 years. Network as a service, it's not a new concept. But we take this complex technology and we believe we can put monitoring, managing, remote operations on top of it and hide the complexity and deliver it as a service. The answer is no, you can't do it. And on top of that, what we're doing is we take the CapEx, we take the OpEx, monitoring all these expenses and convert it to monthly OpEx. That's not true network as a service. To deliver true network as a service, what do you need to do? Let me give you a little bit of history. All of you probably understand very well. Aeronet, the fat access points in the late 90s, that was a startup that built the technology and Cisco acquired it. When the wireless LAN controller technology came up, there were 3 other startups, Airspace, Aruba, and Trapeze, and a few other companies, and they got acquired by larger companies. When the cloud-based management came in, again, you had to have startups that had to start going back to the drawing board and build it and got acquired. So the common theme among all of these is whenever you have a new architecture, you have to go to the drawing board. You cannot leverage existing technology and build it on top of it. To truly build it, and deliver as a service, we had to go back to the drawing board. What did we do? And what do you need to do, right? So fundamental problem in the current technology is we've kept on building the technologies with little to no regard to what does it take to deploy it? What does it take to activate it? What does it take to monitor it? What does it take to manage it? So the day 0, day 1, day 2, and day n, we never paid attention when we were developing the technologies. If you want to deliver as a service, you have to make sure every hardware component, every software component, your architecture, everything is what we call operations-driven design and development. You have to take day 0, day 1, day 2 operational issues into while you're designing the hardware and software. Some of the things that we do when we go and talk to the engineering is when you're throwing a metric, when you're showing an event, when you're showing a log, what is the person supposed to do when someone sees the message? Why would you give it to some message of a person and they have to take an action? Why wouldn't you put it into the software itself? Or why wouldn't you eliminate the problem itself? That's how we go about it. And then second is, you're all sitting here. I'm here. How do you know the network back at home, back in our office is working? We have no idea until someone complains about the network, frankly. You need 24/7 eyes and ears at the site. Proactive monitoring, not reactive monitoring. You need the sensors, you need the information coming from the end user perspective as well from the networking perspective to make sure that the data is coming real time to the cloud. Cloud can continuously fine tune the service. That's the kind of technology you need to build. And then third, to deliver guaranteed service, frankly, you have to simplify the complexity. If you don't simplify it, you'll run into lots of different problems. And more importantly, again, as a service means, you own the security aspect of the networking. So you have to have the security built into the networking itself. It cannot be manipulated by any human being. That's the kind of technology we had to go and build it. What do? We offer end-to-end enterprise networking, wired, wireless, LAN, which includes wireless LAN, wired access layer, distribution layer, in some cases core layer, whole hardware and the software, and day 0, day 1, day 2, day n operations all together offered as a service. But before I go into the details of that, how did we go about building it? I mentioned that we looked at top 100 problems. I looked at the problems from a multinational company for 2 years and talked to several CIOs and CISOs. We designed the hardware, the software, the architecture such a way we eliminated 80% of the problems that happen in the industry today. Just by the design, we eliminated these problems. They do not even happen. Let me give you an example. Electric vehicle has fewer number of moving parts compared to a gas car. So that's why you have a relatively lot less number of problems. That's a similar technology you can imagine. When you think of it as a service, customers do not care what you do inside in your service. They care about whether the users' devices can get on the network securely, can they access their applications. That is the kind of technology we built. And just by design, out of the 100 problems, 80% problems don't even apply to Nile. But we take this equipment, the hardware and software, we deploy it in your environment. Environmental factors like power fluctuation, voltage fluctuations, and RF interference, and as well as users and devices behavior, that's something we cannot control. For that, we put in deep instrumentation where we monitor voltage fluctuations on our Ethernet cables. Because when you're in a Zoom call like this, and there is a small freeze happens 15 seconds, and that happens because an elevator passing by next to the Ethernet cable, there is electromagnetic interference that happens. Can you imagine finding out that problem? Almost impossible. I was working with a company with 300 employees. They get 30,000 alerts a month. A large company, multinational company, they get 500,000 alerts a month. Can you imagine the expertise, resources that you need? And almost all the time, they pretty much ignore all these alerts. In our case, the data is coming in real time. The cloud automatically takes care of fine-tuning the service. I'll give you lots of examples how we go about using AI ops as well as the automation and the softbots. We extended beyond AI ops and created softbots that, just like humans, before we make any change, we make sure everything is okay. After we make change, is everything okay or not? Did we improve it? Those are the softbots we created to make sure that any change we do in the networking in real time, we have better experience for the end users. So that way, we pretty much eliminated 98% of the problems. I'll give you an example. We had a customer that went public during the COVID-19. And they went public. So after the COVID-19, they came back, Austin, Texas. They came back into the office, 200 employees, and we were the only network. This was well before October 12th, 2021, 9 o'clock Central Time. The employees came in here, and they were celebrating it, and about 20, 30 people got pissed, went home. And we tried to figure out, we showed network is not the problem. How many of you agree? Network is always the guilty until proven innocent. No matter what happens, right? Networking is always the guilty. So we showed network is good. We showed, we monitor outside of the networking. We monitor your internet. We monitor your DNS. If DNS is low, people blame the network. So we monitor all those factors. We monitor end user devices. And more importantly, we monitor applications from that location. So we monitored Facebook, Google, some of the top applications. It's a social media marketing company. So they go to Facebook a lot. And these 20, 30 people were trying to go to Facebook. And we showed Facebook was down. They did not believe. 4 hours later, Facebook came out and said we were down. This was almost 18 months ago. Since then, the customer didn't even log into the Nile portal. That's the kind of stability. That's the kind of service we're delivering to our customers. And if we cannot, if we did not eliminate the problem, if we did not automate it, that's when we have what we call production networking engineering team. Some industry people call SRE, site reliability engineering. This is where the data is coming into them. If we did not automate it, this data is automatically analyzed, summarized, and given it to our production network engineers. They quickly work with the development engineering and fix the issue. Since we are delivering network as a service, we roll out the software to the customers. Customers don't even know that. I'll talk about more when we go into the software rollout. How do we do it? What is it? We roll out, so 99.99% of the customers don't even see that problem. That's the best part of delivering as a service, where you do not own software rollouts. It's our responsibility to take care of it. And we continue to automate this as we go, as we come across, so that we can pretty much eliminate these problems happening in the networking.
I don't want to open like a broad can of worms, but just like I could revisit it later towards the end of everything. But so I know obviously with this model and the monitoring, can you do that on like a per device basis? Like how far can this go from a monitor? Because I know you're mentioning like they couldn't access Facebook. Then you're starting to check, okay, DNS and different paths and where we're at. Like, can you do that also on a per device basis or?
Sure. So there are multiple aspects of the monitoring. Okay. One is, when you think of end user devices, that's
right. Like
end user
clients around.
Yes. It. So we monitor, like when you think of the site survey today, right? We do only one time the site survey.
Okay.
Right. But really, things change. You guys know Wi-Fi is unforgiving. It keeps. We do what we call continuous site survey. When we do the continuous site survey, we monitor not only the data coming from our sensors, not only coming from the access points, we monitor your end users. For example, hey, I recognize that you come here all the time on the morning at 9 o'clock and you work till 5 o'clock and you leave. And our access points are constantly looking at it and looking at historical data, hey, something changed here today. Yeah. That may be because there's a barrier came up. As you guys know, when there is a barrier, the Wi-Fi signal strength. So we correlate across multiple access points and determine that you are still sitting there. There is a change that happened. Let me give you an example. We recently deployed at a customer site here in Silicon Valley at a high-tech company. We did a site survey. There are about 200 employees. But after that, they decided to move all the people into the center of the location. So now suddenly, when we designed it, you approximately design 10, 15, 20 users per access point. Of course, it can change. We have done all sorts of things. So the access point can handle multiple hundreds of users, but that's not the right design. So when all those people came in, we realized that there are more number of people associated with the access point, and that's not the best experience for the users. So our automation automatically kicked in and figured out that there is a change that happened in the customer layout. We reached out to the customer and figured out, is it a temporary or permanent change? Because we could see that it was more a permanent change. And we were able to create a work order to go ahead and add 2 access points. That's the level of experience we see from end user perspective and automate it. Any questions? Now, coming back to Nile.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Sure.
If you can hear me.
Yes.
I have a question. I see that in this list, in this slide also, it's like you are focusing on the LAN part, Wi-Fi part. I don't see how, because now things are cloudified, everything is in the cloud. So how do you see WAN and cloud? Because a lot of issues come from the cloud and WAN itself, not LAN.
Sure, Faisal. And so first of all, as I said, like we are focusing on the wired and wireless LAN today. But when you see the founding team, our ambition is much bigger than that. We're starting with this, but our goal is to go beyond that. To answer your point, we do monitor several things outside of our infrastructure. When Austin and Rishit, they'll go into the demo, you'll see that we are monitoring many more things. And we can control only what we can deliver. Right? Beyond that, what we can do is giving you the visibility, and so that you can debug and troubleshoot that area. But we're definitely looking at how do we simplify that area over a period of time.
Okay.
Thank you. So, Nile, coming back, you guys have seen many startups coming up in the networking industry. They're focused on one, typically wireless, or one part of the problem. Here, we're the first one in the industry doing wireless LAN, wired access layer, distribution layer, and core layer. And on top of that, the sensors, physical sensors, and a completely brand new single software architecture across all of this. And we are the first one in the industry. Gartner, explicitly called out, saying that we extended Zero Trust principles all the way to the access layer. It's built into our infrastructure. Todd and I will go into more details on that. On top of that, we also have many, many other extensions. Cloud Portal, this is where, again, Austin and Rishit will show you the details on that. Customers will log in and look at how the network is working. Not just the network, more importantly, their users, devices, and applications are working. And then we have an installer app. This is an extremely simple app where literally a high school grad can go and install the equipment just by following the mobile app. I'll go into more details on that. User app, this is end users. When they have a problem on the network, we know all the time, people blame the network. For all you could be running McAfee virus scanning, and that could slow down everything. You can just type in my.nilesecure.com, we'll show you that, and right off the bat, it'll show you whether the network is a problem, whether internet is a problem. So that will answer part of this one, or whether the user device itself is the problem. So those are the things we let end user debug on their own. And many times, whether you have the problem or rest of your peers on the same floor have the problem. And we are the first one to deliver cloud DHCP service. This entire DHCP service is delivered from the cloud. We'll go into more details. And the most secured guest service, where customers just click and saying that I want the guest service. We take the entire traffic, completely isolate guest traffic from the employee traffic, take it to POP, points of presence, and put it on the internet. Not just the hardware, not just the software, not just the tools, but on top of that, we also had to do day 0, day 1, day 2, planning, designing, and deploying it, and operating it. All of that, we had to bring it all together under a single roof. This is the first time ever in the industry that happened. So when we laid out this service, right, we came up with a basic set of principles. First is, since we are delivering a service, we cannot ever have availability issues. The network should be always up and running. A network should be always secured. We'll go into more details. How do we assure the secured? We cannot compromise on those things. And Automation, our CEO, Pankaj Patel, calls ruthless automation. Anything and everything that needs to be automated, that will be automated. And that's what we have done. And truly, delivering as a service, it's not products, not the features. Customers do not any longer care about products or features. They care about, is it being delivered as a service? And in return, what the customer gets is not only the Nile portal, but you also have APIs to interact with the Nile system. But more importantly, performance agreement. Let me tell you more about it. What's a performance agreement that we do to the customer, work with the customers? We deploy physical sensors throughout the building. Those sensors act like end users, testing the network every minute, multiple times a minute, 24/7, showing you that network is up and running every corner of your building. And you have high definition coverage or fiber Wi-Fi coverage throughout your building. And you have the capacity for users, devices, and applications throughout your building. That is what we guarantee. If you don't meet our commitments, we have financial liability. That's the kind of service we are talking about. And billing-wise, pricing-wise, we have flexible options, which I'll go into more details on that, but flexible options as customers are learning and adopting to it, we're also adopting on the pricing side of it.
Now, those sensors that are around, you said that will do like kind of like minor tests to kind of check to make sure everything's functional. Will that also like hit APs and do continuous ping tests from time to time?
That's right. So here is, it's hiding behind it. But we have this physical sensor that they're testing not just the AP, they're testing all the way to the network.
Okay.
And they're also testing the applications, which I have a picture that shows you all the testing. But they're making sure you have the network up and running, and you have the coverage, and you have the capacity throughout the period, right? And on top of that, they're also monitoring the RF and giving additional information. And more importantly, you may not be able to deploy these physical sensors everywhere because lack of wall outlets. And so we have a third radio in our access points dedicated to act like the sensor. So it's, even though it's built into the AP, it acts like almost like an external sensor and acts from the end user perspective. Make sense?
Can that so that sensor in the radio in the AP, that can also act like a client too?
Yes, that's exactly what it does. It acts like a client and tests the rest of the network to make sure you have the complete connectivity end to end.
So like you can specify, hey, test certain SSIDs. So if you have 3 SSIDs and I want, let's say, 2 of them tested, it will connect to those 2 SSIDs, and is something like that, or? So
the challenge with that SSIDs is, I'll give you an example. We looked into a lot of these things. One of the SSIDs is radius. Now you have to have a certificate, you have to go and create it. Other one could be SSID based. So now trying to program all of that is challenging and making it work. So what we do is we test the network, because rarely you have challenge from one SSID to other. But at the same time, we have the sensors inside the network, and we'll walk you through it, and we can run all sorts of tests from sensors that are built in the network.
So is it testing it on the wired side?
Wired side, wireless side, and from the networking to the rest of the side.
But if it's not connected to any SSID, like how is it testing it?
So if it is not connected to the SSID, we have what we call our own SSID. That's of the sensors. You just plug it in, scan the QR code, plug it in. There's an hidden SSID. That's a SSID, we use it. But that SSID is a certificate-based authentication, just to clarify that.
Okay, I was about to ask that.
Yes, it is a certificate-based authentication, and they get connected to it and test the network.
All right.
Yes. But also to answer your question, we do have deep packet inspection inside our network. Again, you don't have to configure it. So we monitor the application experience from the end user perspective, and we provide you the visibility into that. We also have what we call device fingerprinting. So we understand the devices, different types of the devices, and we'll go into more details on the NAC or the Zero Trust principles that we're doing. Okay. Now let me just dig in deeper into this. We are talking about day 0, day 1, day 2, and day N operations, all part of the service. So we have to go and do the site survey, as you guys know it very well, right? We do the site survey, not just the wireless, but wired site survey as well, because we are offering entire wired and wireless site survey. Once the site survey is done, the data is gathered, everything is automated. The network architecture, the design, the topology, the bill of material, the hardware, the components like transceivers and cables, everything is automated. There's no engineer sitting together and trying to come up with a network architecture. That's the kind of automation we did. That eliminates lots of problems, lots of challenges that typically you run into when you're deploying networks. And
you mean like when the BOM that's getting created
automatically.
Okay.
Not just the BOM, including the network topology, who connects to what, exact layout is done by the automation software. And that information is sent to the mobile app. In the mobile app, a typical high school grad can go and just use the mobile app and bring up the network following the instructions. Let me give you an example. During the COVID time, We shipped the equipment to a customer in Canada, our first ever customer in Canada. We could not ship our people because it was COVID time. We could not bring partners there. So the customer, with zero documentation, zero training, we shipped 41 different pieces of the hardware. They were able to bring up the entire network, 3 floors, with just using simple mobile app. It's really that simple.
So
Today,
I'm looking at, for example, like, on the switch, there's a nice diagram, right? For example, so the mobile app, I mean, is it showing like all that connections in there with pictures? Like my installer, for example, at a remote site can just open up the mobile app and they can just take a look at it. Like, okay, well, switch 1, this port 20 needs to go right there, and
it's almost that, because sometimes switch 21 may be occupied or not. So we give you the instructions such a way that hey, these are the front ports, these are the uplink ports. This port needs to connect to this port. So today we have certain, and we continue to add some more to make it easier for end users. But typically what they need to do is they just need to scan the QR code and follow the instructions and activate it. You guys know very well.
Well, so follow the instructions, right? I mean,
in the mobile app.
A lot of deployments, and a lot of times installers do not follow the directions, right? So normally what the challenge is if it's visual, that helps more than reading like a piece of paper.
So we have videos, small set of videos if you need to, and we have the instructions. But also more importantly, we also have what we call job status. Let's say you go there and try to install it. We automatically show you misconnected certain things. If you ever do it. And we also allow you, let's say if you have a 10-floor building, it's not one installer goes and does, you may have 3-4 people going and doing. We allow that flexibility. You can connect in any way, because we don't want to put a specific strict order, because it depends on many other factors when you go to the site. So you can install in any way you want it, but we will identify whether you followed our instructions or not, and we'll show you right off the bat where you got misconnected, and you need to go and correct it back.
And that will be in the app?
That will be in the app itself. That's right.
So what are the kind of bootstrapping requirements to set up a network like this? Do I need to have some sort of network existing already? Also thinking in the terms of like IPv6, can I do this on an IPv6 only network? Do I need IPv4? Because when I hear like you need cloud services to set up your network that also gives you access to the cloud, kind of wondering how the dependencies sort themselves out there.
Sure. Chris, actually we have another slide where we'll go into the what we call service bring up. So that will give you all the details on that one. Okay, how does it come up? Because we do have to interoperate with your existing router/firewall. So there is some dependency, but rest of the like the wired and wireless side, you don't have to do anything at all. Neither you, nor partner, nor Nile. Just to give you an idea.
You need minimum DHCP and
correct
443 probably out.
Those are the things. Exactly. So we'll walk you through that as well when we are bringing it up.
Could you answer that IPv6 question though? I am curious.
So IPv6 today, as we speak, we are working on it, Chris. Okay. So coming back to that installation, the app that we are talking about, right? Our customer was able to bring it up just using the simple mobile app. And I'll give you, as you guys know, the switching, the wireless, the controllers. If you look at some of those configuration documents, there's one document that's 1,800 pages document. Go and figure out how do you get it right. Almost difficult, impossible to get it right. In our case, when it comes to the networking, I'm talking about the hardware, the software, the layer 2, layer 3, the RF. Absolutely zero documentation, neither for the customer, nor for the partner, nor even for the Nile. But you as a customer has complete control and visibility on what kind of SSIDs, what kind of authentication, what kind of IP addressing, and what kind of guest policies and the user policies that you still have full control on it, but not when it comes to the networking itself. Similar to cloud. When you think of the cloud, you do not care how the AWS or the Google the clouds are, the data centers built, but you have VPC, you have microservices and applications running on it. You have control on those. Similar model here where the network itself is up and running. You focus on users and devices and applications. Continuing on it. So data monitoring, as we talked about, the information is like we have the deep instrumentation, the data is coming in to the real time to the cloud. Cloud is constantly fine-tuning the service. We do not have a network operations center where even though we have 100+ deployments, we do not have people constantly monitoring the networks and fine-tuning it. It's automatically done. And the last one I'll mention, day N refresh. That is when today you are Wi-Fi 5, Wi-Fi 6, tomorrow Wi-Fi 7 or Wi-Fi 8. All that is part of our plan, or part of our service offering. I know we are almost, we're already 30 minutes beyond the 30 minutes. Just to summarize it. As we said, this is not, you're not buying the hardware, you're not buying the software, you're not buying the licenses, not buying the support services on top of it. It is a simple pay per user per month model. In the hybrid work environment, it's almost difficult to estimate how many employees are going to come back. And when you're designing the network, you have to project next 5-7 years. And how can you know? You have to spend a lot of CapEx. In our case, you don't have to spend any penny on the CapEx at all. And we give you flexible models in the pricing per user per month, per device per month, or per square foot, or a flat billing. You have a building, we'll tell you how much it costs you per month.